Hey guys, welcome to this Apata Brand Boxing podcast brought to you by Ringside. Go to ringside.com/podcast and you too can get 40% off selected brands. Well, the OG of YouTube boxing niche, it joins me today. BT, Brendan Taylor from Tru School Sports. How are you?
I'm exceptional, man. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been following you now for a minute. I mean, I could remember you back in the day when YouTube was kind of this wasn't stuff that people did for a living.
No.
And you've kind of carved out your own little niche here, man. And and the credit to you, you did it when you were very young, and this was very, very kind of native to everybody. When did you start? And give me a little bit of backstory of who you were growing up and how you got into this.
Oof, okay. Basically, I grew up, as a fan of the sport. My dad, he put me in front of the TV when I was like 6, and we watched Felix Trinidad versus Bernard Hopkins. That was my introduction to boxing, and what a fight, right? What a great fight.
Well, that's a good fight too. I'm Puerto Rican. It wasn't good for me.
Yeah, I am too. But I mean, I didn't know anything about boxing, so I was just watching it as a kid, not knowing much of anything. But that was my introduction. And then as a kid, I liked other sports growing up. I liked baseball, I liked basketball, I liked hockey, I liked to watch other sports. I was a casual box fan as a kid, but then I became a hardcore fan probably my adolescent years, when I started watching Pacquiao and Floyd and those kind of guys more. And then I would say my love for the sport really, really intensified about 10 years ago when I was 19. And I picked up boxing. I would just box to train. I was going through some things in life at the time, so I needed some direction and whatnot, some character building. So I went to one of the local gyms here in South Florida, a gym in a town called Dania Beach, Florida, where I grew up, called Canino's Boxing Gym. I used to go there and train. And then at the time, I wasn't even covering boxing. I was actually covering the NBA. Most people don't know that before I covered boxing, I covered basketball.
So I saw that.
Yeah, so around 18 or 19, I was a big basketball fan, and I had gotten an opportunity to do some work in the NBA with like the Mavericks and in the D League and whatnot. And that was kind of like, I consider that now looking back on it, like kind of my college or university, because everybody always says, well, you didn't go to college, BT, but that kind of was college, because I was in Texas, I was in another state, I was learning how to create content, go do interviews, be a media member. Now here we are. I pivoted into boxing probably about 1.5 or 2 years after covering the NBA, and that's been almost 9 years now in a row covering the sport. So it's insane.
Why the transition immediately? Was there something? Was there a particular event, or was it you got tired of the NBA, wanted to come back home?
It was a combination of those last two things. I got tired of like the politics of NBA media. They made me jump through a lot of hoops to interview the players, and by the time you interview the players, they're like very micromanaged in the NBA. So I just got tired of it, and then I had a chance to start covering some fights locally here in South Florida. So the first fight I ever covered was actually Shannon Briggs had a little comeback fight down in at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida. And it wasn't just a regular fight. Like, he fought Michael Morone, but it was an event. Like, they had like the heavyweight champion reunion thing going on, and like 20 ex-heavyweight champions were there, like the Klitschko's.
Is this televised?
No, it wasn't televised. Okay. But I had a chance to go, and that was the first event I ever covered, and then I never looked back. I started going to gyms. I started going gym to gym here in South Florida, across the Tri-County area, and I found what I love to do, and I haven't stopped.
Now, when you got into there, were you credentialed at that event?
I was credentialed at that event. I knew a guy who knew a guy that helped me get it credentialed. But
usually how it goes,
that's how it goes. You got to know someone who knows someone. So that's kind of how it went. But now, it's a little easier to get credentials now because I've been at it for a little bit.
Let's go back to that first time. The first real interview with. Okay, so you have an NBA player. That's one type. Okay, they're one type. They're micromanaged. They're not gonna say much. They're not gonna fly off the handle. Okay, they got to be very PC.
Yes.
You go into this realm of boxing. I grew up in boxing. I grew up in gyms. That is a whole different ball game. Okay. Yeah. They can fly off the handle with something very quickly that you didn't mean to say. How is it your initial first reaction with someone who was, they're fighters?
Well,
how was that?
one of the first people I interviewed was Shannon Briggs when he was going crazy with the whole "Let's Go Champ" thing. So that really was a big education on how to handle and manage a personality, because he's very, up and down, up and down. But I liked it. I liked the rawness and the emotion of boxing. I'd rather be that way than somebody be micromanaged and be told what to say with a key in their back,
Right. And that's one thing I noticed with you. And then just the short time I've talked to you, you come off as very genuine. I think that can come off to somebody and say, all right, I'm going to put my guard down with this guy a little bit. You're not looking for the gotchas. And I think that turns people off. When you come across genuine, like you do to me, and the interviews I've seen from you, that opens up the doors. So now let's say Shannon Briggs, first big event you hire. What's the next step in your trajectory?
So the next step after covering that Shannon Briggs fight, it was just really starting to develop that rapport at the gyms across the local community. So the Heavyweight Factory was the first gym I started going to, which is where Shannon Briggs trained. At that time, Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield kind of helped out with the gym. So they used to just be there all the time. So I started interviewing them a lot, and that really helped grow the channel. And then it was like going to local amateur shows, the Golden Gloves, and just going to as many gyms as possible. And then after that, it was okay. Now I got a little bit of a rapport here in South Florida. What about covering fights maybe in different states? So then the first fight I ever covered that wasn't in Florida was actually Terrence Crawford versus Hank Lundy in New York City.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, it was a good one to cover. So I got a chance to do that.
When you get there, you get credentialed automatically. Do you pay your way, or do they cover expenses?
Well, no. In my case, I'm paying my way. So
okay.
It's a little easier now because I've been smart with my money, the little bit of money I make from YouTube. But in the beginning, it was rough. It was rough. Yeah, I couldn't go to too many fights,
If you could walk there or take your bike there, that would be about good.
Yeah.
But what I love about the grind is you didn't take no for an answer.
No.
And think about it. Fighters have to fight. In life, it's a struggle all the time, whether you're a club fighter, smokers, contender, going through managerial problems, going through managers, promoters, whatever. This is who you're cut out of. That's the cloth you cut right there. You are perfect for this kind of industry and this niche. And it's proven, over 70-some-thousand subscribers, thousands and upon thousands and millions of views. Yeah. Here we are. You're now the OG, as I call you.
Yeah, the young OG.
It's BT the OG. That's what I call you, BT the OG.
I appreciate it.
Because you're there. Anytime you get on YouTube, you're on my feed there. And if I want to go to get someone, get the good interviews, get stuff that's up to date, because you got up to date stuff. And not only that, you cover the guys like the Brandon Glantons.
Yeah,
Brandon Glanton, a friend of mine, great guy. And he's someone who's being overlooked, but you bring that to the forefront. I think that's what people like about you also.
I get a kick out of that, interviewing or talking about and interviewing the upcoming guys, or maybe some of the guys that aren't as sought after by the media, because my experience has been just, because I've been part of big fight weeks, big time pay-per-view fights. And I feel like it's not fair to the guys that, maybe don't have the biggest names to just get overlooked. A lot of times the interviewers just want the Canelos and the Gervonta Davises in the world. But sometimes the crazy thing is sometimes you go for the big names and you think those guys are the ones that are going to get you the views. And sometimes you might interview Brandon Glenn and he might say something about someone, and that because people aren't covering him, guess what? You get those views. So it's
right. And he was one of my most viewed ones. One of my shorts that I had one of the most views, because and Brandon is a great guy. He's a family guy, not controversial. Goes in, does his business, and he's done. That's what he does. And I really like him. I generally, and he's an exciting fighter. Reminds me of Evander Holyfield. So let's get into boxing. Yeah, I see how you went through it on there. Let's get into a little bit. We have I just was talking to Jim Lampley a little while ago, and one of his partners always would say, boxing is the theater of the unexpected.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, we had Tim Tszyu, Keith Thurman. I didn't think it was a great fight. I thought it was going to be a fight to showcase Tim, to put him on, because let's be honest, Keith Thurman's been out for a long time.
Yeah.
His last significant win, maybe 4 years ago, he gets injured, torn bicep, had the same injury I had, almost similar to the way he had it. I had it too. Detached right off the elbow, which is what happened to me when I was fighting. So I understand you can't fight. Step in, Sebastian Fortuna. Now, what is it?
Fundora.
He
said Fortuna.
What is the Fortuna for?
Thinking of Javier, the Dominican.
That's what I was thinking of. So Fundora comes in, and I think it's a better fight. The only problem I have is here's a guy who just got knocked out, and he walks into a unification bout. It puts us back a little bit, only because I don't necessarily think he deserved this shot because he got knocked out and he steps right into a unification bout. But they had no real choice. It's a promoter's nightmare to lose the main event. You're a marquee guy. What was your thoughts when you first heard about the injury?
I wasn't really like, it's weird. I wasn't surprised. Keith Thurman, he's been very injury prone since the Danny Garcia fight. That's when all those bicep problems started. It was around that fight. Mm-hmm. And as far as Fundora getting the fight, like, I think it'll be an entertaining fight. But to your point, you said it kind of sets people back a little bit because he's coming off a knockout loss and he's getting basically a unification title shot. And the reality is, like, I like Tim Tszyu, but Tim Tszyu didn't even win the belt like against a fighter as well. So it's the weirdest unification fight probably ever. But as I've been saying in all my videos about the situation, never underestimate the power of Samson Lukowicz, man. Samson Lukowicz can make miracles happen, and he somehow made it happen for Sebastian Fundora.
Yeah, he does. And then you have now 2 titles, WBC titles, being contested in the same division. One's going for the interim, one's going for the it really confuses everything, but it kind of clears up a little bit here. You do have to give credit to Samson. He pulled a rabbit out of his hat there. That was a good one for him.
No, it was. And on top of that, you can't forget you got the champion in recess, Jamel Charlo, the unified champion in recess.
Well, my opinion is at some point they're going to have to remove him from that. You have to.
Yeah,
I would be shocked if he fought within a year. I really would. I don't know if he's going to fight. First of all, I don't even know if he's going to stay at that weight. But he's got to get moving. These guys got to get moving because it holds up the belts, which will bring me to a point I'm going to bring down the road. But overall, when you first heard it was Tim versus Keith Thurman, how was your response? And now that it's switched, how's your response now?
I don't know what the consensus is, but I genuinely feel like the Fundora fight might actually be a little bit of an easier fight for Tim. Because a lot of people are using the whole like he's tall and he's got height, but Fundora is not a guy who fights tall. And when he's at his best, he's right here in that high guard and he's giving up his size. So with him being a southpaw, being close to a guy like Tim Tszyu, I feel like that liver is going to be very exposed. And unless he's somehow magically transitioned his entire style in one training camp coming off a knockout loss, I think he's going to fight pretty much the same. And I think it's going to bode very, very well for Tim Tszyu. Now, only way I can see it being a hard fight for Tim is if somehow maybe he's able to overwhelm Tim, but I don't think he's going to be able to overwhelm Tim as far as volume or anything like that. So I think Tim would have been a good favorite in either fight, but I like this fight more just because I think Fundora is going to move around less. Keith Thurman would have moved around a little more. He's got more dimensions to him. I actually like this fight a little more for Tim Tszyu.
Fundora reminds me of Diego Corrales. Didn't use his height good enough. Could bang. He could bang if he get you, but he just didn't use his height enough. I think Corrales could have gone further, as I do think Fundora could have gone further. And like you said, he's not changing his style with 2 weeks out to fight this. It just wouldn't happen. And I agree with you. I think it's a better fight for us because I think it's going to be more entertaining. Because I don't know if Keith would have engaged as much because he was smaller. I don't think he would have engaged as much because he tends to get hurt. And I think that he's looking for a payday.
Exactly. And he was selling wolf tickets, unfortunately. I like Keith. No, I like Keith. I think in his prime, I think even his prime when he was unified champion, he was great for boxing. He was doing great numbers on CBS and all these kind of things. But you know, boxing's it's a sport where you can't stagnate. If you're not progressing, you're regressing. And I feel like the sport, due to his inactivity, has passed him by. And
if you ever look at his boxing rec, that is a tremendous resume.
It is.
Sean Porter, Danny Garcia. You go right down the list there. He only, his only real significant loss was the Pacquiao, but he's he fought everybody in that little realm there that was in that 47-pound weight class, and he kind of squandered that. I think he kind of squandered that.
It's like he lost the Pacquiao fight, and then I don't know, man. Like then it
was close. It was close.
It was close. He lost the fight. It was close. It could have went either way. I feel like if he would have got the decision, and I was just having this conversation yesterday with a friend. Like, if he would have got that decision, the whole course of the welterweight division is different. because
It is,
then
right?
Spence has to fight Thurman,
Mm-hmm.
and Crawford probably gets frozen out even more by PBC.
Right.
So
If Thurman could make it to the fight, that would be because now the people's main event, which I think is the people's main event, is the co-main event in this one. Rolly Romero, Isaac Cruz. I like this fight for as long as it lasts. What do you think about it?
I love it. I think I'm really intrigued to see how Rolly looks under Ismail Salas. You know, Rolly's a fighter that is very physically strong, has got to where he's got to really just off of determination and athleticism.
Right.
Salas is a more like regimented, disciplined Cuban coach. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that looks. And you know, Isaac Cruz, with him being a shorter fighter, how does Rolly handle that? Because that could a lot of people. I mean, some people don't realize that sometimes fighting a shorter guy could be a disadvantage for fighters. So it'll be a great fight. I think Isaac Cruz should probably go in as the favorite, but I don't know, man. I think Rolly's physical strength could be a big difference in this fight because Isaac Cruz is used to pushing guys back, and if he can't do that with Rolly, if Rolly's able to hold his ground, does Isaac Cruz have a plan B?
Isaac Cruz, I think, is really technical. I think he's more technical than you think. When he fought Gervonta Davis,
Yeah,
he was doing very good defensively and punching back. I think Rolly's not as technical. I think he's a little bit. I think he's got a lot of holes there. Now, when he's training with Bullet, was a little different because he was throwing some wild punches and they would land like crazy punches. But you're right. His new trainer, Cuban trainer, that mentality is you're going to be disciplined and do it. Now, can he change in one fight? He says he's been with them for a while. I don't know that. Would you know if Rolly had? Now he'd been with him for prior to that, but was he with him before this or no?
But what he's referring to is when he was like a young kid when he first started boxing, he was with Salas. Yeah, and then somewhere along the line, I guess he switched to Bullet before around early in his pro career.
Okay, because I wasn't sure how that matchup came because you would think he would stay with someone that he's been with for that long. Not that say the Bullet isn't a proven trainer. I see his work on some of the fights he does, and he's gotten Rolly where he's at. But again, like you said, he's got it from pure just aggression and just will and heart because his punches are wild, and when they hit you, you're gonna feel it. But though that technical fighter that I think Isaac Cruz is, and I think he is, I believe he is, I think that takes him by Rolly Romero. One of the things we were talking about earlier, just before we got in, was this Canelo Alvarez situation. I wanted to talk to you about that.
Okay.
What is your fault? What is your feeling? Because this is crazy. There is a side here and a side here. One side says duck, other side says he's the face of boxing. Where do you lie on this? Because number one, do you think he'll get the Benavidez fight? And number two, does he want the fight?
Canelo will get the Benavidez fight if he wants the Benavidez fight, because anybody Canelo's wanted to ever, like, if anybody had a burning desire to fight, he fought them. So he's the guy that sells the tickets. He's the guy that puts the behinds in the seats. So if he wants to fight, he can make it happen. I think I've had a lot of critical things to say about Canelo over the years. I've gotten a reputation on YouTube for being a Canelo Alvarez hater, right? And it is what it is, man. But I do think with him fighting Munguia on a one-off PBC deal, this could be gamesmanship. I really do feel like this could be some gamesmanship to up the price of a Benavidez fight, because he's throwing out numbers out there in public. So he's negotiating through the media, which, it's not good for most fighters, but for Canelo, I think Canelo's in such a power position where I think he could do that. And so I think this is Canelo's way of saying, you know what, Saudi, you know what, PBC, anybody out there who's listening, this is what I want. And maybe even if he doesn't get that exact $150 million or $200 million number, if he gets like 80 or 90 million to fight Benavidez, I think he would take it.
You think, okay, so let me push back a little bit.
Go ahead.
So you think he can control how the division works based on him being who he's fought? Only reason why I say that is because he's holding up the belts.
No, and I agree with that. Like, okay. And it's his fourth defense as undisputed champion, but two of those defenses were against the guys who were not 68 pounders, never fought at 68. And then the other guy, John Ryder, who I wasn't mad at him when he fought Ryder because I thought Ryder beat Callum Smith was in 2019. So I wasn't mad about it. And I liked the fight, but he got heat for that fight as well. So I think the WBC should have been stripped him a while ago, but
that'll never happen.
I understand that there is a bureaucracy and politics in boxing, and that he's paid a lot of money in sanctioning fees, and they profit off those sanctioning fees. So, do I agree with it? No, but it is a reality, and I would just say for Benavidez, I'm happy that he's finally at light heavyweight because I honestly, George, I never thought that Canelo Benavidez was ever going to happen. That's why for years I would get mad when people would talk about it because I felt like Benavidez was wasting his time. I felt like Benavidez should have moved up to light heavyweight back 2022, last year, 2021 even, because the interest was never there from the Canelo side to fight him. And now he's just playing games.
And I think why I brought that up is only because as a champion, if you're undisputed champion, you have the belts, you have them all.
Yeah.
Fighting the Charlo I don't think that was ideal because that kind of puts a bad taste in people's mouth. And they say, okay, now he's going to fight Benavidez. And then he says, I'll fight Munguia. But before he said he wouldn't fight a Mexican. Then he comes back. So it's a bad look. I know he don't care what we think. I know he doesn't care. He doesn't. But for the sport of boxing, like you can't sit there and say, okay, we're in the playoffs. The Cowboys are playing the Giants and we're not going to play the Giants. We're going to play the Browns.
The Jaguars.
Yeah, you know. Oh, that's even better. So you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't do that. If you want to be taken seriously, and you hold the belt, and you say, "I want to be champion," you gotta fight David Benavidez. I do think you're right when you said the gamesmanship, because there's no way he'd be publicly saying, "I want 200 million," because that's like, I mean, you're talking Mayweather numbers, and I don't know anymore if you're gonna see those kind of numbers right now. I think the economy is down a little bit. And people aren't going to spend that kind of money right now. Saudis do have the money.
They do. But then see now, like, okay, if they try to do the fight in Saudi, then that comes back to the Benavidez side of things, right? Because Benavidez did an interview recently and they asked him, would you go to DAZN to fight Canelo? And he was like, well, no, because PBC's been paying me good money for X amount of years. So then the question becomes, will Samson Lukowicz and the people that handle Benavidez's career allow him to go to Saudi? So maybe he might be saying that knowing that in mind, you know?
Oh, and that's a good point. I didn't think about that. I mean, I think you're right with the gamesmanship. I think it actually makes it a bigger fight.
Because we're talking about it.
And you could bring those big numbers in. You're going to need those big numbers in the next couple of months, and provided nobody slips up. Benavidez, if he loses at 175, it's a 175, but it takes a little bit off. God forbid Munguia knocks out Canelo. I mean, that would really upset the apple cart. I don't even want to think about that. Do you think Munguia has a shot?
I think Canelo will beat him, but I do give Munguia a shot because Canelo Alvarez has fallen in love with his power at 168. He's been beating these guys up like Caleb Plant and Saunders and breaking their orbital bones. And I just feel like it's funny because early in his career, when he fought the James Kirklands of the world, he's put together some beautiful combinations.
Yeah.
Then he started fighting in spurts. Then he became like more of a defensive counterpuncher. Now he's just loading up on everything, and he just fell in love with his power. So for that reason, I do think if Munguia is able to navigate the counterpuncher to Canelo, he could outwork him. I do give him a chance. Any volume puncher who can prevent themselves from getting clipped or hurt in the early rounds has a chance against Canelo Alvarez.
I think Canelo started that right around the Sergey fight, the Kovalev fight. I really do. When he had that one punch knockout, which didn't seem like a huge punch, but he got him and he got him out of there. That's when I think when he started to fall in love with his punch and power and thought, I could take it. Some of these guys at 68 don't fall that way. They don't. No. Let alone Bivol at 75. I knew he wasn't going to get knocked out. There was just no way. There was just no way at all that would happen. What do you think with the heavyweight division right now? As you saw last week or 2 weeks ago, AJ knocks out Francis Ngannou. Where did you stand on that fight prior to going in?
It was a cash grab, and I wish Anthony Joshua would fight his IBF mandatory Filip Hrgović.
Filip Hrgović it was just announced he just signed to fight
Dubois.
Dubois, yes, he did.
Yeah, I just interviewed Filip about a week ago here in Florida.
I saw that. I did see that. Yep. And good guy. I thought he should have replaced Tyson Fury if he got cut, because the chances now are higher. The cut is in a bad spot. That's a bad spot to have a cut. You don't want to go in handicapped with that.
No.
Especially against
It could listen. He did say when I interviewed him that he'd be willing to step in if it happens again. So he's on standby just in case.
Oh, I know. Believe me, I know that guy could fight. Hrgovic can fight. He's been fighting for a long time. Kind of put on the back burner.
Very much so. And I've been I've spoken out about it a lot because I really and truthfully feel like he has been one of, if not the most avoided fighter in boxing. I really do feel that way. I mean, you can go down the list. I mean, so many guys refuse to fight him for the IBF eliminator spot, and it all started with Michael Hunter,
right.
Joseph Parker on multiple occasions, Andy Ruiz on multiple occasions, Dempsey McKean before in 2022. Dempsey McKean got offered the fight, didn't take it. Murat Kasiev. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's so many that I can't even remember them all.
Now, this does open up a little bit of a door. With the Tyson Fury and Usyk fight having a rematch clause.
Yeah.
It opens up a little bit of a door for Anthony Joshua to say, hey, I'll fight Filip Hrgovic next. Exactly. What do you think of
that? That's the fight. Honestly, that's the fight I want to see the most in the heavyweight division. And that's the fight that, people were anticipating. The boxing industry was saying that because the WBO already came out and said if Fury and Usyk do a rematch, or not the WBO, the IBF. The IBF already came out and said that if Fury and Usyk do a rematch, their belt will not be on line for that rematch. It's going to go vacant, and Hrgovic will fight whoever the highest contender is, which right now it's Joshua. So that's a great fight. I mean, Anthony Joshua gets the chance to become a 3-time heavyweight champion. We get to see Filip Hrgovic in a big fight to see how good he really is, and to see if this is all just hype or if he's really on that level. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I believe, I think he's underrated, number one. I think he's a guy who hasn't had that big fight backing.
No.
And not only that, he hasn't fought in the States enough, I think, on a high level to kind of get that garner that power, which is why we miss HBO and Showtime doing those little vignettes.
Boxing After Dark,
Those are perfect. That is a perfect show for him. They wouldn't have to pay him a tremendous amount of money, but they could pay him enough to keep him busy. Even if he had a stay busy fight, I don't care.
You'll get a good prime time slot on HBO.
It puts the engine behind that person.
That's why it's like, even back in the day, you would have these third tier fringe contenders like Derek Jefferson and Maurice Harris putting on bangers on HBO.
Great fight. That was a great fight.
Yeah.
One of the best knockouts I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Lastly, I want to get into a fight where I'm hoping comes off. Obviously Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia. I'm actually a very big Devin Haney fan. I met him in Vegas. He was so good to my kid. My kid was fighting he went to train at Mayweather Gym just for a little bit there on vacation because my stepson lives there. And it's a great kid.
Yeah, he is.
Took time to talk to my son, talk to him about his amateur career and whatnot. It was very, very nice. So I'm biased towards him. And I love what his father does. I mean, I know that it's controversial. I know but I love the fact of what he does with his father. In fact, the stuff that you do on yourself with your father.
Yeah.
I love, because I have kids that, and it makes that I have a boxing bond with a kid is tremendous. So that being said, out of the way, does Ryan Garcia make it to the ring?
I think he will.
Really?
I actually think he will. I just think too, like, even if he didn't want to make it to the ring, I feel like people will just get in his ear, and because of all the money involved, it's going to be a big fight. There's a lot at stake here. This is Ryan's chance to become WBC champion, and not even just that, just settle the score and probably right some of the wrongs in the Tank fight. So I do think when push comes to shove, there will be a fight April 20th. But who knows? Well, I'm taking a guess here, but I think it'll happen.
Well, let me ask you: does this fight go too long? If it is in fact happen April 20th?
What do you mean, like?
Does it go? I don't think this fight's going to go too long.
Oh, like you think Ryan's gonna get stopped?
I think he's gonna get stopped, and that's saying something because Devin Haney doesn't punch much that hard. I think Ryan's gonna get stopped.
I can see it. It's hard to really gauge how Ryan is really, because
my thought is this: if he was so, and I know mental health issues. Someone very close to me suffers from it.
Okay.
If you're not Devin Haney is a disciplined athlete. Disciplined. Doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, doesn't womanize. He's very disciplined.
Yeah.
Now, fighting is very hard on your body, hard on your brain. Frontal vortex of your brain is your reasoning part. I mean, you've spoken to Riddick Bowe plenty of times.
Oh,
it's very tough. It's tough to see that. Okay.
Yeah.
If you have mental issues, that's the first part that goes. I don't think someone at that point would be able to reason with the magnitude and then getting hit that way. I think he actually gets stopped probably around round 5 or 6, only because I think he's going to want out. And that's just my opinion.
It's possible.
I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. I hope he pulls out and Barbosa steps in. I know there's a lot of money on the line.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, shout out to Arnold,
not that I like the fight. I think that I think Barbosa has a better chance mentally to be in the fight.
I got you. I hear you.
Because I think Ryan Garcia is firstly, I think Derek James about had it. Joe Goosen kind of put it out there that said this guy's untrainable. I thought Derek James thought maybe he could handle it. Derek James is a great trainer. Can't handle a guy. I think it was too much too soon. And now, you see his father holding mitts now. He's doing slow motion TikToks. There is something really strange here. You've got to be very on point because any little slip up in that level, it's within seconds and it's over.
It's curtains. It's over.
That's it. And all Devin Haney needs is that little thing. So my question to you would be, let's just say Ryan shows up and gets KO'd. Does Devin Haney now excel to now the face of boxing and become what Floyd Mayweather became after he became Pretty Boy, beat the daylights out of Arturo Gatti, and became Money Mayweather?
I don't like to get into the whole face of boxing thing because I got a different perspective on that than most people. But I think Devin would need to.
Perspective. What is your? What do you feel?
My perspective on the face of boxing thing is that right now, I don't really think there's anybody in boxing that's culturally iconic enough to say there's a face of boxing.
That's a good point.
Boxing in America is probably the 9th or 10th most popular sport. So if you're the face of the 9th or 10th most popular sport, then like we got to look at what is the face of boxing doing to push the sport forward. I think you could say there's faces of boxing. Like I think you could say Canelo is the face of boxing in North America. You could say Anaya Inoue is the face of boxing in Asia, or Anthony Joshua is the face of boxing in Europe or Africa or whatever. But I don't think there's anybody right now that's making that much of an impact that transcend boxing to say there's a face of boxing. So I feel like when I hear people have those arguments, it's more sort of prop up who their favorite fighter is and to push their agenda. But I don't really think there's a face of boxing right now. Everybody needs to do more work in promoting the sport and holding that crown with integrity and making the best fights happen at the appropriate time.
I think you're right. By that point, you've really changed my outlook there. I know, seriously, you did. Just on that point by what you said, because I've always said I've never seen a fighter from the United States carry the flag to the ring. Never.
That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, the last, and I'm so glad you said that. The last fighter that I really feel from America that was proud to be American, and what's funny is nobody ever talks about this, but it's Floyd Mayweather. He would always say, "I'm not African American. I'm an American. I was born on U.S. soil, red, white, and blue." When he fought Ricky Hatton, he came
born in the USA. I was just going to say that,
and knocked him out in front of 10,000 Brits. I mean, what's more American than that? So,
and you know what you heard? Nothing.
Quiet. That's what I'm saying. So I would like there to be a fighter of like the A-class level to like represent the USA, because it's kind of weird to me, right? You got fighters like. It's okay to embrace your heritage. I'm not saying don't embrace your heritage, but sometimes it comes off as a little disingenuous with some fighters, like Shakur Stevenson. I never heard him speak no Spanish. I'm not even sure he speaks Spanish, but he talk about he's Puerto Rican, and Floyd Schofield's Dominican now. So it's like, can we bring back being proud to be American? Like, what's wrong with representing the Stars and Stripes? Floyd did it, and he was undefeated.
And you know what's funny? It's funny. We're on the same page here, because I mean, I was a huge Trinidad and Kodo fan. They represented our country well. I mean, they just did. And I thought that was a big problem, a big disconnect, that no one would embrace the American. And there's, besides Saudi, you're going to make money here. You're going to make money here. You're probably going to make the most money in boxing here. rather than overseas, because this dispensable income isn't there.
Yeah.
On YouTube, if you have 1 million views in India, you're not going to get, and 1 million views in the United States, you're getting more money from the United States.
100%.
So I don't understand why they wouldn't do that. Only the fact that, one, the USA boxing amateur class is awful right now. There's nobody there. There's nobody coming out. A De La Hoya who came out, a Floyd Mayweather that came out, and Andre Ward who came out. I mean, Andre Ward, as much as he came out, not really much of an impact. You know what I mean? Not much.
Yeah.
So what do you think? What do you think boxing can do right now
in the States?
In the States, what do you think right now? If they said, BT, we're giving you the reins.
Oh, they don't want to do that.
How do you change boxing to where on a Saturday night or a Friday night? On a Friday night, me and you used to watch ESPN2 Friday Night Fights. On a Tuesday night, when we had school the next night, we watched Tuesday night fights on USA. How does that come back?
It's a good question. It's hard. That's a long answer, man. I think someone has to really want to embrace that. Like someone has to want to carry that mantle. I don't think there's any fighters right now. Like there's nobody in the USA that I would say is like trying to fill that void. And then you look at boxing programming, right? You got I dedicate all my time to covering boxing, and it's hard for me to sometimes keep up. You got fights on DAZN, fights on ESPN Plus. You got a bunch of different apps. So if boxing was easier and more visible to the average Joe on the street, that would go a long way. There's so many. A lot of times, what I'll do to see how good a fighter really is, I'll pick a fighter and I'll talk to one of my friends who doesn't know anything about boxing. I'll say, okay, hey, Eric, this is Jaron Ennis. What do you think about him? And I'll show him a couple highlights, and based on the reactions I get, that's kind of how I know who could be a star, who couldn't, just by showing highlights to someone that doesn't know boxing. But I just think somebody has to really embrace it. And I like the guys like Shakur and Devin, they can fight their ass off. They're great. But I just don't think they have that personality to really, captivate the entire country.
Yeah. It's funny you said Boots. I have a good, and we're going to go back into this whole thing. Why
he's a guy I feel could be a star, but they're not telling the Boots story properly. I feel like, him and his dad and being in Philadelphia.
Oh, it's tremendous. And here's the thing. We're 2 hours from Philly. Okay. And we had a fighter here who was traveling. Oh, he was going out to Philly to box, and he went to a gym. He rolls into a gym, and they say to him, hey, and he's an open class fighter. He had about 15, 20 fights. The amateur fights. They weren't even pro. And they said, okay, we're going to throw you in with someone. We're going to throw you in with Boots. And he goes, who's Boots?
Oh, no.
You're talking 2 years ago. I said, who's Boots? So my point is, if someone said, hey, we're putting you in with Money Mayweather, you'd be like, whoa, hey, I didn't know. Granted, this lasted about all of 30 seconds, this fight. It was a sparring match, but it literally lasted 30 seconds. He knocked him cold in sparring. But what I'm saying is something like that has to change, and that's why losing Showtime, losing HBO, you don't have those vignettes, those backstories. I'm not invested in Boots because I don't know his backstory. He has a great backstory. I'm not Brandon Glatton. You got to be invested to him if you knew his backstory.
I think fighters got to do a better job too. Like I know fighters, because I've told fighters before myself, like in gyms and stuff, like, hey man, get in the community, try to be as much of a presence in your own local community as much as possible, and just work your way from there. And a lot of fighters tell me, well, I just want to train, and I just want to go home, and I want to just, I want to just be about boxing. I'm like, okay, I hear you, but don't you want people to care? Don't you want people to tune into your fights? Don't you want like your fights to have meaning to more than just your immediate friends and family? Like, shouldn't you want as many people in the world to know about your fights as possible? So I think that's what it is. I think promoters have gotten lazy marketing boxing. Mm-hmm. I think TV networks, with boxing programming being so scattered, it's hurt everything. It's just a domino effect. And then on top of that, the biggest and best fights not happening at the appropriate time all these years. Right. It's been a big deal. It's been a big thing. I'll tell you this. I'll tell you right now, if you made Shakur Stevenson versus Gervonta Davis tomorrow, and every American mainstream media outlets that are covering it, you would get it would have an impact. But
and I think you'd get the buys. I mean, I was talking to D-Style Boxing yesterday. I was on his show, and he told me the number one grossing pay-per-view was Manny Pacquiao. Was it Manny Pacquiao Floyd Mayweather? Okay, and the highest theft it was Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. So he believes that no matter what, they're going to steal anyway. You're still going to get the highest a bang for your buck. So either way, you're going to get paid. Some people just aren't paying. That's just the way it is. We come to that conclusion. They're going to steal. So we're at a point now where you're right. The fights have to be made, but I also think you're right with the management of how they handle the fighters. They are making it a little bit easier now with social media and streams like this. They are, and they'll give you 15, 20 minutes. They are, but I believe, and I have a plan that I wanted to put together for some of these managers and fighters that would connect the fighters with the regular fans, and something I'd worked on for a while. And it's more of a business thing to tell them, but if they can get that down, they would communicate very well with their fans and would broaden their base. That's something they got to do.
You have to, man, because I mean, we live in a fast-paced society now, and here in the States, I mean, look at all the sports we have here. We got baseball, basketball, hockey, football, college sports, MMA. I mean, so you're up against all that, and then on top of that, you're up against all the other entertainment options. Music and concerts and these kind of things. So you gotta do something to stand out. Like just in boxing, there's what is there 18 or 19 weight classes now at Bridgerweight.
Yeah.
So, there's 4 champions in each weight class. So you got to do something to stand out and really connect with people. They got to get excited to watch you fight beyond, and not just for boxing reasons, but because maybe there's something about you that they resonate with.
Well, I could tell you, BT, you have stood out for years for me. You've done your job at Tru School Sports from day one. I followed you from the really back in the day when you first started. I remember you covering the NBA and stuff.
I remember I remember seeing Zapata boxing in the comments. That's why when you messaged me, I'm like, wait a second, I've seen this name before. So I was like, yeah, come on.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, you want to push forward boxing. You are a good ambassador for boxing. You're a young guy. You're active in the business. You're there. People know you. I saw a clip of someone come up to, hey, I just saw you this morning on your show. So you do a lot for boxing. And honestly, BT, this has been a pleasure. I really enjoyed talking to you. I mean, we get along great.
I appreciated it, man. I don't like. I'm trying to do more collabs, with people, because I'll be so much in my own world. But I was happy to do this one because, like I said, I remembered you from years ago, and I don't forget people. So,
and again, I appreciate that because you kind of almost sometimes when you do this stuff, you feel unknown. Like, again, I own a business, so I've been in and out between training kids. I'm fighting in April of all things at 48.
Really.
Congratulations! I don't know.
Congrats, you're a beast, man. I hope when I'm 48, I'm doing cool stuff like that in shape.
Well, let's not get crazy. I'm not that good in shape. Yeah, I got to get to 189. So,
okay.
These are the kind of things when you have people that are as passionate about boxing, that talk about boxing. And you know what was sad today? When I was talking to Jim Lampley, that's the voice of my childhood.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, they kind of just pushed him away.
They did.
And stuff like that. We need people like you in this sport to push forward the boxing that we need to see in the United States.
Well, the good thing about it is, like I said, man, I've been I made some good moves. I haven't been stupid with my money and whatnot. So I'm going to be going to more fights. So I'll be a lot more visible this year than probably any year ever.
Well, if you need anything from on our end, reach out to us. We'll take care of as much as we can for you. We appreciate anything you guys do for us. We'll return that favor as well.
For sure, man. I appreciate it.
No, BT, where can I get a hold of you on your social media? Let us know.
Oh, for sure. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Tru School Sports, the way it's spelled down there, at Tru School Sports on Twitter. I'm always on there. So if you want to tweet me, yell at me, agree with me, disagree with me, I'll be there. On Instagram, it's at Just a Kid from Dania. Dania is like Dania, Florida, like DANIA, Just a Kid from Dania. And then on YouTube, the home of boxing on YouTube, Tru School Sports. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. I'm at like 73,000 right now. So come on over. Come on over. Later on tonight, actually, I don't know when this is going up, but I've been going live every day for like 90 days. And it's this whole series I'm doing called 90 Days of Boxing. Today's day 63. So I think day 90 will be the night of Devin versus Ryan, or the day before. I'm not sure if it's the day before or the day of, but it'll be somewhere around that time. So we're active.
That's good. And you have to be active like that. I appreciate your grind. Believe me, there's no one who likes someone who grinds like you do. BT, Tru School Sports. It was a pleasure to be on the Zapata Brand Boxing Podcast. We will see you next time, and hopefully we get to see collabs more with you.
For sure. I'll be here.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, George.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand Podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.